Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. It's Tori, and today I'm going to be doing a book review for A Touch of Light by Thiago Abdalla. If you want to read my written review for this book, go down in the description box below because I do have my Goodreads review posted down there for you guys to read if you prefer to do it that way. I'm going to go through the book and I'm going to talk about the things that I normally do in the book reviews. I'm going to talk about the writing style, I'm going to talk about the plot, I'm going to talk about the characters, and I'm also going to talk about the world building. So this is a spoiler-free review, but I will say, just in order for me to talk about the book, there will be some what people might consider some very light spoilers. That being said, I will do my best to avoid giving you anything from the story that will change your reading of it. Thiago's use of world building in this novel is honestly, I think, one of his strengths as a writer. He has taken a really fascinating theme and built an entire culture and world around it. Everything ties together, which is something that is really difficult to do in novels, and Thiago does it very, very well. Thiago has built an entire culture around the theme of death as a concept and how it affects us in life. Now, what's so cool about this is that the magic system, the cultures, the religion, all of it is very focused on this kind of, it's a fear of death in a sense, but it's also a way of cheating death. In this religion, there is a deity called the Seraph, and she has left mankind. In this world, the way that you show that you are one of the Seraphs worthy is by living a really long life. People who do die are not spoken about. They're essentially made nameless. Their bodies go through a cleansing ritual, and they are considered one of the unworthy who's not going to be around when the Seraph returns to collect her faithful. Now, there are some politics involved with this as per norm, so there are people who are considered worthy by the clergy of this religion who try to preserve bodies to show that even though they did die, that they're still one of the Seraphs worthy. The religion is a huge central part of this story. However, one of the cool things is that Thiago explores a variety of different environments and cultures within that same world. He gives us a pretty diverse perspective on this world and the core religion by giving us 3 POVs, which I will discuss when we get to characters. One of the things I always loved in a story is getting 2 sides of the same perspective. So while we do get POVs that are within the religion and within the royalty of the main part of the continent, we are also given the POV of someone who is an outsider, who's kind of in the tribal nations at the edge of what's called the domain. Another thing I need to mention about in the world building, because it's definitely going to hit a checkbox for a lot of the mythical creature junkies out there, and that is that there are griffins. There are mythical creatures involved in this story. There's a whole order within the religion of characters called sentinels, which are griffin rider warriors, which is going to move us right into characters. So in this book, we are given 3 main POVs. The first one is Adrian. At the very beginning of the story, we come in to Adrian's POV, learning that his older brother has been killed on an excursion at the edge of the kingdom. This throws Adrian more into the spotlight as the last remaining royal son of his father. The death of Adrian's older brother also brings in a lot of the themes we talked about in the world building section of death and worthiness, and you know how we are supposed to grieve for someone who we can't talk about and we have to pretend never existed. The second POV that we get in this story is the POV of Lynn. Lynn is a sentinel, so remember those griffin riders that I mentioned earlier? Lynn is one of them. However, she's kind of in self-imposed exile for mistakes that she's made previous to the book starting, that she is kind of doing her own self-imposed penance for. However, even in exile, Lynn quickly discovers that the thing that she's been running away from is rearing its ugly head, and that it is going to drag her back into the fight sooner rather than later. The third POV that we get in this story is Nasha. Nasha is an outsider in a tribe of outsiders. She is at the edge of the domain kingdom. Nasha had to work really hard to gain any kind of respect in the tribe that she's in, and she's hiding a very deadly secret. She's hiding something within herself that she's trying desperately to make sure no one else discovers. While these 3 characters follow their own paths through the story, they are all interconnected by a common enemy and by something that they are all struggling with. Moving into the plot. Despite this being a first book, Thiago really doesn't hold back from giving us a lot of action, a lot of things happening. It's not something that necessarily feels like a setup book, even though it is setting up a lot of things for the series. Thiago does a fantastic job bringing us a major conflict that directly opposes a lot of the belief systems within this story and a lot of the things that this world is built on. Death quickly becomes a very real and very serious threat to the kingdoms of the domain and all the way down to the outsiders in the tribal lands at the edge of the kingdoms. All three of our POVs are swept off in the tide of this danger. As we learn more and more about the magic system, about death, and about what's actually happening, it really pushes us forward into the rest of the series because he is building towards something massive. All right, let's talk about writing style. Now, I can see Thiago's book appealing to a wide audience for a couple different reasons. I think it is accessible enough of a writing style that fans of modern fantasy style books are going to really enjoy it. It has a lot of that fast-paced, action-heavy plot line that we have all come to know and love. That being said, I feel like Thiago gives enough of a nod to classic styles of fantasy that you're going to pick up little bits and pieces throughout the book. I think that will appeal to a lot of readers who do enjoy the more classic poetic style prose, because there are a lot of things in here that really make you stop and think. There's a lot of philosophical undertones to this fantasy book. I think this book will appeal whether you are looking for a fast-paced, action-based book, or if you are looking for something that has a lot of great plot, but also is going to make you think and have a little bit more of a philosophical read. If you really love intricate plots and worlds that have everything kind of interwoven and threaded through everything in the story, you will really love this book. Also, there's a great variety in the three main POVs, and I think that every reader is going to find something to relate to, something to enjoy, and a character that really speaks to them very quickly in the book. For me personally, it was Nasha. She was the one that pulled me in right away because she is the tribal warrior with a big secret, and that tends to be an archetype that I would gel with to begin with. Lynn, definitely, as I got through the book, I really, really loved Lynn as a character more and more, the more of her story that I read. Adrian is the kind of character that I feel like is pretty widely relatable in the sense that he is really desperately trying to be the hero and trying to prove himself, but as Thiago says on the back of the book, how far would you go to resurrect someone you love? Overall, there are great themes in this book. I honestly think that Thiago is one of the rising stars of self-pub fantasy. I am really looking forward to seeing what he's going to do in the rest of the series. I have had the opportunity to beta read Shades of Madness, which is book 2 in this series, and that comes out in January, and I think that the way that he is building up this series is just going to be phenomenal. I'm really excited to see the culmination of all of the efforts that he's putting in. The magic system in this story is really intricate, it's really interesting, and it ties, again, it's very interconnected to all of the characters, it's very interconnected to the world, the religion, everything, but there's so many different facets of it that I was constantly learning something new as I was going through the book. There are two things I want to mention at the end here that I really think Thiago should be given kudos for. One of those is for showing multiple perspectives on the same events. And what I love about that is we don't just get one perspective on the things that are happening. We are getting the perspective of someone who's like right in the middle of it, and we also get the perspective of someone who's on the outside looking in, who has a completely different culture, who has a completely different opinion about what's going on. And I really love when authors do that because it gives you such a well-rounded, nuanced view of the world, and it feels much more immersive. The second thing that I want to give kudos to Thiago on for this book is he has 2 out of 3 female POVs in this book. I know that female protagonists in fantasy can be very difficult to do well, and I wanted to say that I really appreciate both of the female perspectives in this book. So that is something that I will immediately put on the kudos list because I was very impressed by that and how nuanced he made all of these characters. The one minor critique I will say about this book is that I do feel like it does start a little bit slowly for me personally. It did take me a little bit of time to settle into the world, but once I did, the payoff was excellent, and I feel like he was able to give us so much within the first book that it really doesn't feel like we spent the whole time just like setting up for the rest of the series. It really gives you a ton of information, a ton of action, and a lot of really great character moments. I highly recommend this book. I honestly think Thiago is a huge name to watch within the self-pub and indie fantasy community. He is definitely going places, and I cannot wait to see the end of this series and whatever else he chooses to write in the future. I would love to know if you have read this book. Please let me know down in the comments what your experience was with it and what you thought of it, who your favorite character was, because I always love hearing everyone else's perspectives on the books that I read as well. So, with that being said, I hope you guys have a great week. I hope that everyone is experiencing some fabulous 5-star reads, and I will see you in the next video.